Hi, everybody. My name is Megan. I'm 22 now, and what I'm about to tell you happened a few years ago. I know it was really stupid at the time, and that there's no reason to explain what I did other than my own stupidity. Guys, whenever you have to make a big decision, please think about it for some time. Really, more than 15 minutes in the shower. You could screw up your life, just like I did. I was born in a small town called Newberry, South Carolina. You've probably never heard of it. A lot of people go there to work or study for a little while and then they leave. Nobody wants to stay in a town like that but my mom. She used to say it was better to live in a quiet, remote town than some noisy, stressful city. Yeah, remote, quiet, lonely, boring, etc. Since I was little, I knew I didn't want to spend the rest of my life there. It would be depressing to tell my future kids, yeah, I was born nowhere and I stayed there so you could have the same boring childhood I had when I was your age. I knew that I was going to leave. I just didn't know when or how. Nobody in their right mind would like to stay there. And maybe that's one of the reasons why Dad left us when I was really young. One day he went to my room at night to read me a story before going to sleep. And then the next morning he left me a note saying, I will always love you, and I'm very sorry. I feel like if you're actually sorry about something you're going to do, you try to do more than just leave a note. Anyways, my dad left me with 2 younger sisters and my mom, and to be honest, they weren't the very best people to be around. Still, you don't choose your family, right? My mom was restrictive and bossy. I never knew my grandpa, but apparently he was a lieutenant back in World War II, and she inherited his traits. She was strict, and anything that she didn't like was literally forbidden for us. And my sisters, they were fine, I guess. They were just 2 annoying little girls, Brenda and Tiffany. They were so incredibly competitive. I feel like they just wanted to have a reason to be better than everybody else. For example, once I baked a cake for my mom's birthday, and the next year Brenda made 4 cakes for her, just to impress everybody and show off her pastry skills. I didn't really mind, they were actually quite good. But you get the point. So, in short, my home life sucked. But on the other hand, school wasn't that bad. I had a nice group of friends that also wanted to get out of town as soon as possible. This was when I made a plan for my life. I decided that after I graduated high school, I was going to study architecture at Newberry College. It was close, but I could get a scholarship with my grades and stay home for a few years to save money to move out. Not a bad idea, right? If only I thought out all of my other decisions that well. Newberry College was the only thing that gave any sort of color to this town. Every football game was a big deal for us. The whole town shows up. All the streets are empty but one, Stadium Street. Yeah, I know it's not a very creative name, and I promise you I'm not making this up. You can Google it. There's Seltzer Field, the home of the Newberry Wolves. They're not the best team, but they're not terrible either. Let me just say that I'm sorry if you're from here and feeling attacked or something like that. I'm just trying to give context for everybody else who doesn't know about our little town. For example, if you're not from here, you wouldn't know that in front of our football stadium, there's a cemetery. And you'd be right if you guessed that the name of the street is Cemetery Street that leads to the cemetery. Again, if you don't believe me, you can Google it. And even more spectacular, if one of the teams kicks the ball far enough, it could land in the cemetery. Where else in the world would you find something like that? Anyways, my friends and I never missed a football game, and it was there that I met Noah. He was having trouble ordering a hot dog, so I helped him, and I noticed he had a weird accent, and he told me he came from Ireland. Newberry College had a lot of international students. At that time, he was a freshman. We talked for a few minutes before going into the stadium. He played for the soccer team, which actually sounded really cool and kind of exotic. I'd never gone to a soccer game in my entire life. What can I say? It was love at first sight. We dated for a couple of months, and then he asked me to be his girlfriend, and of course I said yes. Meeting Noah was the best thing that ever happened to me there. My life had been so mundane and boring, but he could make fun out of even the most normal things. Everything with him was better. Suddenly, Newberry wasn't such a boring place anymore. A lot of times, I felt a bit insecure about our relationship. He was a college kid dating a high schooler. What if an older, more mature girl swooped him up? Maybe I wasn't old enough for him. What if he leaves me in the middle of the night like Dad did? I told him how I was feeling, and he told me not to worry about it. His idea for a solution was to do picnics out in the park in front of his college so all the girls there would know that he's already taken. It was really sweet of him to say. Everything was great for the next 2 years. Noah and I were really happy. I graduated from high school and got a full scholarship to Newberry College. And now studying there also meant being closer to him. Those were the happiest times of my life. Some of my friends did move away, but others were going to college with me, and even my relationship with my mom got better. It seemed like things were finally going in the right direction. Noah was my first in a lot of things. My first kiss, my first real best friend, my first time at the movies with a guy, and yeah, my first time, I grew up a lot being by his side. I know that I was young, but I felt like our relationship was something special, something uncommon, something real. A few months into college, he told me he wanted to talk to me about something. He said he wasn't going to finish his degree because he got the opportunity to become a professional player back in Ireland. He said that he was making all the arrangements to go back there to play soccer within the next 2 months. What? I get that it's his dream, but what about us? That was all I could think. I was devastated. I knew it. He was going to leave me too. I went to my room and I cried for hours. And when I finally stopped, I went to the kitchen for some water, and he was still there. I guess he was really trying to do the right thing. It was late by that point, and I asked my mom if he could stay the night on the couch. After all, nobody wants to walk home past a cemetery at night. My mind was racing. I couldn't let him just leave us. Not like this. If he wanted to go, then he would, I don't know, maybe he could take me with him. I had an idea, and I'm not proud of it at all. But it was the first thing that came into my mind at the moment. When it was late enough, I texted him to come over to my room. He came over and we spent the night together, and you probably can figure out what we did. But before starting, I told him I was going to put the condom on for him. And of course he agreed. He probably thought it was hot. Right before putting it on, I pinched the tip with my nails just a little bit and made a small hole that he wouldn't notice. We had a great night, and then we went to bed. A month after that, I bought a pregnancy test to check and see if my plan worked. And yeah, it did. I was pregnant. I texted him that I needed to see him as soon as possible to talk. We met at the park, and I told him that I was pregnant. I had to repeat it several times because he didn't seem to believe me at first. He thought I was joking, and then he realized I wasn't. He thought about everything for a moment, and then he started freaking out. He ran away and left me alone at the park. I didn't know what to do either, so I just went home to cry. A few hours later, he texted me to ask if I was sure. I sent him a picture of the pregnancy test for proof. He told me that everything would change for us with a baby on the way. The next day, he came over really early in the morning to talk about it. His plan was to tell me to go to Planned Parenthood and get an abortion. I told him that I wasn't going to do that. It was our mistake and that we needed to face it together. He got mad about this. He told me to wait a few days to think about it and make a plan. Little did he know I had already made a plan, and that plan was to get him to stay with me at all costs. Otherwise, why would I have let myself get knocked up? Getting an abortion surely wasn't going to keep him with me, so yeah, I'd already made my plan. And that was to be with him forever. It was really awkward for a week or so. We didn't really talk much. I was starting to freak out, but I knew he was too good of a guy to abandon me while I was carrying his kid. Finally, he asked me to meet up with him again. We met up again at the park. We didn't want to meet up at a coffee shop or a restaurant or something like that because we didn't want anybody else there. I was surprised because when I showed up, it wasn't just him. There was some guy with him. He was wearing a suit. Noah said this was his new manager and that they'd come up with a plan to deal with this situation. They offered me 2 options. Stay alone in Newbury and he'd send me money for the baby, or go to Ireland with him. They said that I had 48 hours to give him my answer. After a few hours of thinking about it, I decided to move to Ireland, even if that meant putting aside my scholarship and my dreams. And being honest, this is my fault and I kind of deserve it. I can't imagine my life without Noah. He's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Flash forward to today, and now I live outside of Dublin with our son, Robbie. Noah's a professional football player, and we barely see each other because he trains every day, Monday to Friday, and he's usually playing Saturdays and Sundays. We only have time for ourselves at night, and we still love each other. He's doing really well this season. He's probably going to transfer to an English or a Spanish club next year. You might be asking if I ever told him the truth about how I got pregnant, and the answer is no. I have never had the guts to tell him. I know what I did was selfish and wrong. Nobody should ever do that to anybody else. But if I'm being honest, I don't regret a thing. Life without Noah is meaningless to me. If you would have done the same thing, Let me know in the comments below.